Good afternoon, I'm Aaron Pabone, and this is Game Journalism Network, and thank you for joining us for a special live stream discussion about AirPlay 2. AirPlay was first a couple of panels that were done at the Forging the Future event, which was organized by the Society of Professional Journalists. Immediately after the panel, however, there was no thought process of planning another AirPlay through the SPJ or through Michael Koretsky, and that's where Game Journalism Network has stepped in. We wanted to continue the conversation in a journalistic setting. Joining us for this special live stream panel is GGN contributor John Smith.
Hello, my name is John Smith. I had a hand in organizing the first AirPlay in conjunction with the Society of Professional Journalists. I helped coordinate the committee as well as handle some of the logistics and the technical aspects of the live stream.
And also joining us are three returning speakers who were at the original AirPlay event and will be returning to this AirPlay are Derek Smart, Ash Gow, and Mark Sebb.
Hi, I'm Derek Smart, software developer. It's good to be here to continue the discussion, which we didn't finish last time.
Alright, I'm Ash Scow. I'm a commentary writer for the Washington Examiner and now also a senior political columnist at the New York Observer. Just glad that I got invited back.
I am Mark Sebb, also known as Action Points, and for those of you who saw Derek's video when we got outside, I was the guy with the bar on his face. That's probably what people recognize me for.
Okay, so this AirPlay 2 is going to be held in Tampa, Florida on April 17, 2016 on a Sunday, and we will have a special live stream on this YouTube channel which will be hosting all of the panels of AirPlay 2, including the main debate that we're going to have, a continuing discussion from the original AirPlay panel, and new panels that are going to be talking about journalism, ethics in gaming journalism, and the game development world as a whole. Keep in mind, we would like to make this very clear that this is not exclusively a Gamergate event. We are still making this a journalism event, but we are going to be talking about various things in the gaming world that might not relate to journalism. However, we are making an open invite for the gaming press and the mainstream media to come by and come to this event and report on it and ask any questions that they might have about the Gamergate controversy and anything about the video game world as a whole. Some of the discussions that we are going to have are going to be continuing from the original AirPlay, but we're also going to be having new discussions as well. The first panel we'd like to discuss is the Continuing the Conversation panel, which is going to be continuing the main conversation that was cut short during the second panel at the first AirPlay. Here we're going to be asking questions about how gaming journalists, or journalists in general, should be covering controversies like the Gamergate controversy, and how editors should fact-check these kind of stories before publishing it. However, the main debate, which is going to be the Gamergate debate, has been evolving and changing over the past couple of months and year. And it's no longer just about ethics in gaming journalism. It's also been stemming into other areas. The failures of the gaming press, the harassment narrative, women in video gaming, censorship, and new related Gamergate issues will be discussed at this panel and debated on. Speakers at this debate are going to be imposed on time limits, which means that we're going to answer as many questions as possible and ask as many questions as possible, and at the same time understand all sides of the controversy. There has been concern with this part of the debate as we've been trying to invite people who are against the argument of ethical standards in gaming journalism and saying that the Gamergate controversy is about harassment for women, against women, in the video gaming world. Here we're going to be asking questions to both sides so we can understand every side of the issue in a journalistic setting. Even if we don't have people who are against some of the issues that we've addressed, as a moderator, we're going to do everything we can to ask all these questions as openly and evenly as possible. The other panels that we are going to have are going to be talking about before the main Gamergate debate. Essentially, everything that's been going on with the Gamergate controversy has actually been going on since before the hashtag was even coined. We're going all the way back to the Table of Doritos article and incident, the Cannon Lynch situation in 2007, and even before that. And here we're going to discuss about earlier failures in the gaming press and what happened there and anything that has been learned from those situations. We're also going to be talking about social justice versus game development. Here at this panel, we're going to be talking about how games are being censored and or being altered or not being released at all because of certain social issues in gaming. A good example of this could be the Dead or Alive Extreme 3 controversy and also the changing of certain character animations in Street Fighter V. We're also going to be talking about internet culture, which is something that Mark Seb will be headlining for that, and we're also going to be talking about gaming journalism 2.0. And here we're going to be discussing about how gaming journalism is changing and what should be changed about it, and things that we should be aware of when it comes to the new area of gaming journalism. And we're also going to be discussing journalism as a whole. A lot of people don't really seem to understand how journalism is supposed to operate. Again, many people have been under the assumption that journalism is only about who, what, where, when, why, and how, but a lot of people don't seem to understand or actually understand the proper ethics and the proper background in journalism. Here we're going to be talking with journalists so we can have an open discussion and understand how that operates. If you have any questions about this AirPlay 2 or anything you want to ask our speakers, you can use the hashtag AskGJN. In the meantime, how many of you, this is for our speakers, you guys excited to be back for this AirPlay?
I certainly am.
Yeah, the last one was so much fun, not just the panel, but getting to meet all of you guys and everybody who came out, and, the meet GG in Miami was so much fun. I'm just excited to see everybody again, and new people.
Really, Aaron? I'm headlining a panel? No, I'm messing with you. Yeah, no, it'll be good. I mean, I'd love to talk more about internet and web culture, because the media is just terrible understanding it. But no, it's good. I'm feeling kind of excited. I mean, I've said early on, the best way to really combat bad press or media is just to make yourself heard. And another event hopefully means we get another chance to just keep talking. So it's just, yeah, I'm down. If you guys give me a place to stand and talk, I'll do what I can.
If I could echo that sentiment, I really do think that one of the ways moving forward with the games industry, moving past the controversy, trying to make the industry a better place as a whole, is going to be through events like AirPlay 2. The ability for the industry to sit down, buckle up, find a good space to discuss safely and productively the sort of issues that have been against us and that we've been facing. It's going to be one of the great relievers and fixers for the industry is going to be events like AirPlay 2.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that concerns me about all of this is that nobody's really sat down and thought about how to get all the influences into one, in the same mindset. There's so many things going on. There are a lot of people who influence certain decisions being made. Some people are very, very loud about those decisions. But in the gaming industry, it's all boiled down to piles and piles and piles of articles and very little change over the years. And even though a lot of people are still skeptical, I think the very fact that a group of people who care about this stuff, care enough to organize these sessions, I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, things like GDC have different panels for different things, and something like this, I would hope would morph into something bigger that actually has an impact and an effect, on an ongoing basis, not just a bunch of people get together, talk about stuff that nobody cares about or does anything about, and everything just resumes the status quo. I mean, that's just a waste of everybody's time.
We do have a couple of open questions already that have been coming in, and Derek, thank you for bringing all that up, by the way. But we do have a couple of open questions that have been coming in. One of the primary questions that we've been receiving has been, are we going to be talking about the Game Journalist Pro list? And this was something that really didn't get necessarily brought up at the first AirPlay, but this is something I guarantee that we will be discussing at this AirPlay 2. This was something that I was actually even disappointed that wasn't even brought up. But another personal question I do have is, after the first AirPlay, have any of your views on the Gamergate controversy changed after all of that?
Can I jump in and actually say a little more to that question they asked?
Which one, the Game Journalist Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just for you folks watching, we had I think the last two topics we were going to go do was Game Journalist Pro and then how the media mishandled Gamergate. But because of how Rescue was running things and the limited time, we didn't even get to it. So that I think that'd be within the first panel, right, Aaron?
It was briefly, it was about to be brought up or briefly
No,
brought
I
up
mean,
in the first
I
panel.
mean at AirPlay 2.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely going to be bringing that up in the second, in
Okay.
the first panel.
For continuing the conversation, that'll
Yes.
be topics we can bring up.
We also are going to be bringing this up in the main debate as well. This is something that, unfortunately, I was disappointed that this was never brought up. I felt that this was one of the key issues in gaming journalism that should have been brought up, especially in a journalism setting. But this is something we do intend on bringing up and even discussing.
All right. So what was the question you had posed us, Aaron?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought you were going to add on more than that. Very sorry
No,
about
it's
that.
fine.
Yeah, essentially, after the first AirPlay, has any of your views changed on the Gamergate controversy, or has your views evolved from the Gamergate controversy after attending the first AirPlay?
I wouldn't say my views had changed at all. I still thought that, pretty much what I thought going into it, which was that it was a false narrative and, these were good people that cared about ethics and they were getting told that they were misogynist harassers, and I don't think anything has really changed.
Derek, have your views changed since the first AirPlay?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, my views did change quite a bit, but I mean, which is one of the reasons when I heard that they were doing another AirPlay, that it would give us a chance to, address some of the things we couldn't address at the time because the session was cut short, and also the new issues that they brought up. I mean, the bottom line is, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about, what we can say and or do to affect, to bring about change. I mean, it's one thing to sit around and brainstorm a whole bunch of things, but if people aren't paying any attention and nobody's making any changes, it all boils down to the same thing, where we all just get around together and talk about a bunch of stuff, or go away, and the status quo continues. But I'm hopeful, because after the first AirPlay, there was a lot of traction about the things we talked about. A lot of people were engaged, which is good. I mean, prior to that, it was just pretty much everybody talking at each other, not really paying attention. But I think the first AirPlay kind of got a lot of people talking about a lot of things and actually understanding some of those things, rather than just fighting and arguing and getting involved in all kinds of inconsequential discussions that amounts to nothing. So that's one of the reasons why I'm hopeful that hopefully the more these sort of sessions come up, the more the discussion and the narrative will have momentum, and some of it will eventually stick.
Okay, Mark, how about you?
Has my views changed? Yeah. Funny enough, I guess I became more interested in it. I actually went and quit my job and decided to throw myself even more into trying to help fix this big, giant, crazy miscommunication. I mean, some people obviously are have anti-consumer views within the games media, but I like to say a large part of it within the industry itself and the consumer is a miscommunication. Yeah. So it's just, I guess I'm more enthused now, more than ever.
Okay. So I'm going to go from a couple of questions from the YouTube live chat. One question, we've actually been getting this question a lot, has been, why not just do AirPlay 2 as a live stream? Now, we are live streaming AirPlay 2 at this live event that we are going to have. The reason why we're not just doing it as a live stream has primarily been because everybody's already been doing Gamergate live streams in some capacity, and we felt that there was a definite dent in this controversy when the first AirPlay happened. This was bringing a live discussion and a live debate to a live setting, and we were bringing a live discussion, bringing in all these issues in a different setting than just having it over the safety of a keyboard and a screen. An in-person conversation is usually the bridge to understanding issues as a whole, and that's why we felt that we wanted to continue this as a live event, but we are live streaming this event so everyone around the world can see. I'm not sure if everybody else agrees with this on that.
I could add to that, actually.
Sure.
I remember at the first AirPlay, I believe it was Lynn Walsh, she had said that when you had an anonymous source, you still at least need to, confirm they're a real person and speak to them. And just being able to have a person with a face and a name it brings so much more credence. I mean, compared to Ash or Derek, I'm practically nobody, but to have an actual person there speaking about these things, I feel it elevates. At the very least, it makes it human, and that just makes the things you're saying that much harder to ignore.
It's very easy from the other side of Twitter to hit the block button on somebody with an anime avatar, but when you have these people on stage making reasonable and rational arguments and having a civil discourse, there's this light in your head that comes on that says this is possible. We can bridge the gap. We can have civil, productive conversations that help towards making the industry a better place for everybody. Part of that is being able to come to the table and just talk about these things. And being in person is one of the requirements for that. So live streaming that discussion is obviously very important. That way the consumer and the rest of the industry gets a chance to watch and listen in if they can't attend to that event in person. But echoing the same sentiments that Mark just made, that's exactly why this needs to be held in person.
Next question on the YouTube live chat is security going to be ramped up to 11? Security is one of our main priorities at this one. We want to do everything we can to avoid any attempt of shutdown of this panel, which is why we're not even talking about anything such as a discussion of where the location is going to be or anything of that nature. The only thing that we are, and this will be in April. That's pretty much all we're going to say on the matter of that. But more details will come soon, depending on security and anything else of that nature. This next question goes to Derek. What aims do you have by being part of the next AirPlay event?
Well, I was hoping that we would continue where we left off because we had a lot of things we wanted to cover in the last AirPlay, and of course the session got cut short. And I did get to talk about a few things, specifically about how the media and certain people had somehow decided to brand an entire cast of gamers as being a hate group, blah blah blah. I mean that really upset me, and it still does because gaming is all about drama, and we're all involved in drama, no matter how it is. If you're a gamer, the whole drama that comes with gaming, you're part of it. But at the same time, there has to be, that we can't be part of a community or cast of gamers whereby we can't express how we feel about things, we can't question certain things, we can't protest certain things without being branded. I mean, yeah, there are a bunch of people who are doing really despicable things, but that's society. I mean, you have thieves, you have robbers, you have con men. I mean, you don't throw the entire human race into a black hole just because you have a few bad apples, and that's how I take a look at the whole thing. So the thing about it is, after that AirPlay session, people started talking, and I think, funny enough, the whole thing kind of has, it might be a coincidence, but the whole thing has kind of died down. That whole hate rhetoric, the whole us versus them thing, in my opinion, from what I've seen in the past few months, has kind of died down. A lot of people think, oh, the Gamergate thing is dead, blah, blah, blah. It's not. So my expectation is that this time around we continue the dialogue, we continue to, as leaders in our own field, in our own societies, in our own little, cast of people, that we continue to let people know that, it's okay to protest certain things. It's okay to be upset about certain things. It's okay to say, hey, look, this isn't right, and blah, 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 without being, without being attacked, going on the attack, being branded, being shut down, or, all these things. So I'm just hoping that the more we have these discussions and the more, prominent voices, express how they feel about things, that the people who follow those popular voices will be able to get on board and understand that there are other ways of achieving good results without going to war over it, because nobody ends up winning. That's my expectation.
If I could piggyback off that answer, one of the other questions we've been asked was, have any antis been invited to AirPlay 2? And the answer is yes. We've invited quite a few antis. Many have not replied, and if they have, it's been a no. Um, One of the great hopes in continuing events like AirPlay in the future is that as we build this sort of repertoire, this reputation for hosting good quality, wholesome events where productive conversation happens, where people don't feel like that they're going to be under attack. There's no pressure. There's productive, quality conversations on the industry happening. That more of these dissenting voices will be comfortable showing up to these events, may actually want to express their opinions, to have a voice in the conversation, and that's what AirPlay was meant to be from the very beginning, a conversation about the industry and its state currently. So the big hope is that we include as many people in that conversation as possible, and that conversation leads to a better industry.
Okay. Well, next question, and this is for everybody on the stream. Do you think that the media at large can be changed? Is AirPlay a drop in the ocean or a bucket? And this has actually been a very good concern because a lot of people have, whenever I brought up AirPlay or whenever I brought up gaming journalism in general, some of the responses I've actually been receiving have been, well, isn't journalism in general corrupt? I mean, look at what the big three, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and everything that they've been doing on there. But this is actually a very good question, especially since we're looking at a microcosm of journalism in a larger journalism world. So do any of you agree that this is a drop in a ocean or a bucket?
I think it's a drop, but it's having a rippling effect, where we've seen the mainstream media start to get called out more. Because first it started with games journalism, and then the mainstream media started reporting on it, and they were just as terrible, or if not more so. Where it was just Gamergate, comma, hate group, comma, move on with the story, no explanation. And you saw that from Slate, you saw that from other BuzzFeed and many other big notices. But you also saw people start to question other media narratives that if especially gamers, which, I mean, there's millions and millions of them. So when they start seeing that, wait, if this narrative is wrong, then so many other narratives can be wrong. And, you start looking into the way, I mean, some of them I've heard have said, maybe Republicans aren't as evil as the media points them out to be, or you see with me and Kathy and Christina's issues, with the other feminism issues, that those narratives are false, and it just kind of had a ripple effect with, it's not just the games media. And I think Koretsky had mentioned at one point that music media used to be this bad in the 70s and 80s, and that it kind of fixed itself, and that we're just kind of having this whole rising that now it's not just games media, it's the entire media that is just corrupt in this same way, where they look for an easy narrative, they adopt that narrative, and completely ignore or downplay anything that goes against that narrative.
I think I want to offer an answer. I mean, if you're done, Ash.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think if you think a drop is not worth your results, then you have a problem, because anything worth the time is going to take a long time. When we did the outside panel after the bomb threat, and we were just kind of like casually talking with people, someone in the audience, a younger woman who was a journalist, had asked us questions, and I was able to answer some. And then I saw right afterwards she tweeted, "I understand what Gamergate is now, thanks to the panel." And when I saw that, I was like, I think this tells me it's not impossible, and this tells me we can do it. At least one person who's a journalist, who, like, I think she did like local reporting, got it. I mean, there's probably 100 people who don't get it, either because ignorance or because they've been misinformed. But I know it's not impossible. And I want to say right now, I mean, I can't give specific details, but there's a misconception that AirPlay didn't do anything because, all the bad apples, the anti-consumer, the people who are anti-consumer within the games media didn't outright get fired. I'm just going to say this now. A lot of them did get fired, but they didn't say it because it would look very bad, and it would look like, people won if they got fired. Some people seem to have just, no longer work at various sites, or they took breaks conveniently. They did not present it as that because then it looks like they're not in control, and the media needs you to think it's in control. So I'm just going to tell you guys that now. Also, the industry, there are people in the industry who did watch these things, but they can't say, that they agree with it because they have children, they have a house, they have bills. It could jeopardize their family if they get too verbal about it. So while you don't see, the immediate results where it's like it's wrapped up in a pretty bow, that doesn't mean nothing happened. If you're ever fortunate enough to get to know someone within the industry and on a personal level and then ask them, there's a good chance you'll probably hear, something did happen as a result of it.
Okay. We're actually getting a lot of suggestions in the chat for people that we should invite to this AirPlay. We do ask that if you have any suggestions of people you wish to see at this upcoming AirPlay, to send us an email at gamejournalismnetwork@gmail.com. And if it's someone we would like to get in on the conversation, then we will more than likely send them a invite. And a lot of the people that you have actually been suggesting on the stream are people we actually have sent invites to. And for some of the people who are watching this and seeing your names pop up, check your inboxes, please, and get back to us soon about that. Some important questions that we've also been getting have been, with the discussion of the ethics and standards in gaming journalism, should an AirPlay 2 be only a journalism event? Why are you bringing up other issues outside of journalism? That's actually a question I don't mind answering. The thing is that with the Gamergate controversy as a whole, here on Game Journalism Network, we have not identified Gamergate as X, Y, and Z, i.e., it's not about ethics in journalism, it's not about sexism, it's not about misogyny. We have defined Gamergate in a journalistic sense as a controversy that encompasses a variety of issues as the ones I've mentioned before. So because we are discussing the Gamergate controversy, we do have to discuss other issues that are not just related to gaming journalism, so we can understand the entire scope of the controversy and so we can properly report and understand on it, especially since we are trying to conduct live journalism in a live setting, which means we do need to ask questions that may not be related to journalism. But if they are related to Gamergate, we are asking those questions. John, I thought you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
No, you just seemed to pause there, and I had to clear my throat.
Okay, for timing on that. Mark, this question is for you. What got you involved in the Gamergate controversy?
It was inevitable. I mean, I started my channel, I think, in 2012. So I cared about these things to begin with. I mean, just before there was even a hashtag. And I'll just outright say it. I used to go to the video game board at 4chan before it became a terrible mess. And the value I found there was that because it seemed, at least it seemed, unfiltered, there was a lot of noise, a lot of just static, but every once in a while you'd get these honest opinions from people who loved games that you wouldn't get, like, maybe in an article from a writer who's friends with a developer or what have you. And because, I know just from my own education, the media never tells you the full story, not typically, especially if there's lots of good news, and they're probably not telling you the full story. I became frustrated that something was being left out. So I started my channel and I tried to talk about games. So when Gamergate happened, when there was eventually, I think when Baldwin coined the hashtag to actually talk about it, I was like, sure, yeah, no, I was waiting for this. I'll do everything I can, and I'll hopefully just try and spread more information to people.
Another question we've been receiving has been, why do we have someone who thinks video games reinforce sexism and violence representing the pro side of the Gamergate argument? And this is about Nicole Sund, also known as Cult of Vivian. Well, she herself has made it very clear that she is on the pro side of this argument. Whatever her thoughts and beliefs are completely hers. Everyone here in this debate has freedom of thought of their own accord. If they believe that that is the case, then they're more than welcome to believe that. And these are questions that we will be asking them at the debate. However, our primary reasoning for inviting Nicole soon was to represent the consumer side of the Gamergate controversy, i.e. people who don't have a direct hand in the video game development world or video game journalists, but primarily gamers who have been seeing this from an outside perspective. And their opinions and their thoughts and their understanding is an important thing, especially when it comes to covering the Gamergate controversy. Sorry, I'm afraid to scroll up here. Next question, is Koretsky going to be involved in the planning of this event, or is he involved in this event in general? No, he's not. He is offering assistance to us. We have been talking to him. However, Koretsky at this current time is primarily concerned about the Kungal Awards and everything else related to the SPJ going on in Region 3. We do have permission from him to use the name AirPlay since this was initially his idea. This also leads into our next question, is the SPJ involved in the planning of this event? Or if so, or if are people from the SPJ coming to this event? Now, we have been actively talking with members of the SPJ. We cannot confirm yet if any of them are coming, but we are talking with them, and we are hoping to bring in someone from the SPJ. However, when it came to the first AirPlay, the SPJ did not necessarily plan AirPlay. That was all Michael Koretsky's planning. He planned it and had it at an SPJ event. The SPJ did not have a direct hand in this except for offering a venue. However, the SPJ nor Michael Koretsky had any interest in continuing this conversation. They just wanted to start the conversation and ask these questions. And they were hoping that someone else would take up the conversation and keep going with it. And that's where GJN stepped in. Our primary goal has been to continue this conversation, continue asking these questions, and, as some people have said, conduct an active journalism. That's been our primary concern, and we're hoping that even after this AirPlay 2, someone else can continue this conversation. Maybe GJN will continue it with the third AirPlay, or maybe someone else or another reputable news site will continue doing it. But our primary concern is this, and this is something that we all should be doing, is talking about the situation and also finding solutions to the problems that are plaguing the industry as a whole. Not just in gaming journalism or in the gaming world, but also journalism in general. These are things that could be fixed, and these are questions that need to be asked, and we will continue to be asking these questions. I think we're approaching the tail end of this conversation, and I want to thank everybody for showing up for the stream. If you do have any more questions, please post them in the live chat or use the hashtag AskGJN. Mark, Ash, and Derek, do you guys have any hopes on what will the outcome be for this AirPlay 2?
I do. I mean, I still think that because the original AirPlay was, was well regarded by both sides, I thought, even though some of the AGG folks were accusing me of being Gamergate, and even though I guess I should have sent them a dictionary showing where the word neutral appears. But all in all, it was well received. A lot of people were talking, and even some of the AGG folks who were really up in arms about a whole bunch of things, some of them kind of calmed down, and instead of going on the attack matrix, they like the opposing side ended up having a good discussion. So I'm hoping that the same thing happens. I mean, it all depends on what we end up talking about at AirPlay 2 and whether their the talking points are important enough and enough to warrant discussion and engaging everybody in meaningful discourse. So that's pretty much my hope, really. Just to keep the dialogue going, because the only way to get any sort of change or to get any sort of people talking about anything is to engage them. And unless you provide a topic worthy of discussion, people are going to discuss a whole bunch of things, most of which are meaningless.
Yeah, I'm hoping for some more media coverage. AirPlay, the first AirPlay did get some, but it was largely ignored. The bomb threat, especially, right? So if there's any kind of harassment against an anti-GG person, then that makes every single media outlet out there. But a bomb threat against GG people was largely ignored by these same outlets. So I'm hoping that these outlets at least mention that this is happening and that our conversation reaches some more people. and that that AirPlay 2 isn't the last thing, that we can have more discussions similar to this closer together, so that it's just if they're going to have their narrative, then we're going to counter with our own narrative, and we're going to keep putting it out there so that it can't be ignored.
The question was, what are my hopes?
Yeah,
Right.
what are your hopes, or what do you hope happens after the end of this AirPlay?
I hope that more people within the games industry realize things can be better. I think one of the things for whatever one's stance might be within GG, or even not even within GG, but as a result of GG, we saw that our views on games were not being well represented by the industry. That what we thought maybe we were just a minority or just someone who might have been wrong. By finding other people have these views, we strengthened ourselves. We became more focused, and things are not as difficult when you feel like you're not alone, when you have someone to work with. And I think as long as we continue to show that these are things we care about, people within the industry will feel a little braver, a little more hopeful. Because at the end of the day, there's really two people who matter for the industry: the people who create the content and the people who buy it. I mean, hell, for that matter, I mean, for those of us who found ourselves, we could even make games if we want. It's the media should aid it. It shouldn't act as a wall. And I think maybe it's going to be a step in that direction. At least I hope.
For me, I hope that there's going to be many great solid questions answered. For example, there's going to be a lot of anti-questions directed at everybody, whether or not any antis do end up showing up. For example, Derek, you were mentioning earlier, you would show the definition, the dictionary definition of neutral to some of your contenders, but one question you might be asked possibly is, how do you stay neutral on a moving train?
Can't get off of this train.
But in all seriousness, many of the sentiments echoed by Mark, and by Derek, and by Ash, I hope to see the same sort of things happen in general, to see a better industry, to see more people come to the table, to see a better dialogue happen, and to sort of get out of this position where everybody feels like there's this stigma that this conversation can't happen, and to just provide a space for people to engage with each other.
All right. Actually, I have two questions. Well, first, this question was originally aimed at Derek, but it's also now aimed at everybody, which is, what are your stances in the Gamergate controversy, and why? The initial question actually was, Derek, why do you consider yourself a neutral when you seem to have more of a pro-rhetoric when it comes to the Gamergate discussion? We'll start with that, and then everybody else will answer where they stand on the Gamergate controversy and why. Derek, you're up.
Well, it's very simple. I mean, I've always stated, for the record, over and over and over again, that once you count, the whole Gamergate controversy, it's about gaming. And picking a side, I mean, I've been around for a very, very long time. I mean, I know, a lot more than most about the industry. So because it's something that affects, gaming as a whole, just because a bunch of people decided to pick sides because it ended up being an us versus them type narrative, it doesn't mean that I have to pick a side, because both sides do have valid arguments. The problem with both sides is both sides are so entrenched in their beliefs that any sort of rhetoric that seeks to undermine that belief and or rock the foundation of what they believe is right and just and whatnot tends to end up in a war. So the reason why I don't get attacked by either side, for the most part, is because I try to engage in rhetoric that speaks to the issues that they're concerned about, without pointing the finger or you should have done this, you should have said that, but what about this? Once you engage people in meaningful discourse, no matter how upset they are, as long as you can get them to listen, and then they speak, you listen, you speak, they listen. Once you get the dialogue going, no matter how upset people are, there's always a way to reach a common ground. And I found that even though I again, as I said, I agree and disagree with certain aspects of both sides. I just felt that as somebody who's been around for such a long time and seen a lot of things going in the gaming industry, I felt that it was much better for me to be in the middle rather than pick a side, because usually when I pick sides, that never ends well.
Captain Ahab.
Yeah.
So yes, and then the following question obviously was, where's everybody's side in this controversy? Now, I'll answer real quick and then we'll pass it on. I've always made it very clear what my stance was, is that as a journalist, and whenever I'm here representing GGN, I do everything I can to maintain a neutral stance on the argument and on the discussion as well. I'm doing everything I can to understand both sides of the argument. I understand the ethics in gaming journalism issue. I understand the misogyny and harassment issue. I'm doing it because I do everything I can to expose myself to understanding both sides so I can make an informed decision and an informed report on everything that's been going on. Reporting on fact over nonsense has been my key thing when starting this channel, and has been my key thing as a journalist since the beginning, even before the Gamergate controversy. Fact over nonsense is one of the most important things I can be as a journalist, which means that I need to understand all sides of the issue. So because of that, I've had to maintain the disposition that I have to maintain a neutral position on the controversy as a whole.
I'm going to say, since I think that there's, and there might be more nuances in this, that there seems to be 3 legs of Gamergate, my position on each one of them is mainly truth and ethics. So when you talk about ethics in journalism, right, I'm for the real narrative, so I'm against the false narrative aspect. When it comes to the sexism in the gaming industry, again, it's about where the truth lies, and basically, a lot of video games are made for men, and you know what, I play them too. I really do not care if Lara Croft has giant boobs or just large boobs. It just doesn't matter to me. And then on the consumerism issue, I really, as a consumer, don't like being lied to and manipulated by the media or the developers, telling the media that they can only report on certain things, or the media willfully doing this, or anything like that. I don't like that. So I guess that's where I am on all of these issues.
Okay.
And it's my turn, I think?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you
Never.
restate the question?
What is your stance on the Gamergate issue, and why are you on that stance, essentially?
In terms of like what, before, now?
In general.
I mean, if we're talking about why I got into it, then yeah, it's still.
No, the initial question was, do you consider yourself pro, neutral, or anti, and why?
Now?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, really, it's the hashtag is belongs to people, and whatever the majority of the people decide they want that hashtag to mean is up to them. I'm not sure what it means currently, but if you forgive me for saying this, but a hashtag or even AirPlay or videos or articles we may write are all tools, and my interest is trying to fix video games. So if that's the goal for people in Gamergate, then that's my goal.
Way to be a politician on this, Mark.
Yeah, on that stance, I am inclined to agree, because I've even mentioned it before, and I've even mentioned it a couple of times, is that controversies do generally evolve and change, and with something as massive and as amorphous as the Gamergate controversy, eventually it was going to move away from ethical journalism,
of course, yeah,
to other issues. And right now we've been seeing a lot of people talking about censorship in gaming, censorship in a lot of streaming or online streaming for gaming. If a good example of right now is there's a game that's not being allowed to be streamed on Twitch.
Oh yeah,
Yandere
Yandere
Simulator.
Simulator. Yeah.
Right. And like these are, and some games have even been censored or altered. And these are obviously big issues that a lot of people in the Gamergate conversation have been talking about. So the conversation has been evolving into more ways than one. So again, that's one of the goals of AirPlay too, is to understand all sides of the conversation, not just about gaming journalism, not just about misogyny, not just about women in gaming, every issue at play. So we're going to ask all these questions. We're getting a lot of talk about.
If I could
Nicole.
chime in very quickly.
Sure.
As far as the position things go, I just thought maybe I might have an interesting perspective on this because I came into the controversy pretty late in the lifespan, three months before AirPlay. I had sort of tangentially known about it because I had an interest in video games, but I didn't really know about it until I had to put my feet to the fire and help put on this event. I was on a pro Gamergate committee selecting Gamergate speakers for AirPlay. So there's no way I can separate myself from my introduction to this controversy than to say that I was, if I had to pick a side, pro. I was quite literally labeled that. Now, as I've seen time move on and I've seen sort of the ways the conversation and the dialogue has been evolving or failing to evolve in some scenarios, the thing always has been for me is that the best way to resolve any of these conflicts is to have productive and nuanced conversations about the issues. And the problem with a lot of internet discussions is that people come into it not acting in good faith. They just want to win their internet points by beating the argument and proving their side to you or whatever. When really the best way the conversation should be happening is that every side walks away from it feeling just a little bit cheated, if you get what I'm saying. In the sense that, somebody who is more concerned with sexism should maybe walk away from the conversation feeling like they've learned something about the way somebody who disagrees with them feels about censorship or the concerns of developers not being able to express themselves freely, while at the same time the person on the other end of that camp might feel like they have a bit more of an informed opinion about how certain things can make people uncomfortable or whatever. So that's sort of been the big staple in this for me. I'm on the side of video games. I just want to see the industry get better, and through nuanced conversation, I think that's possible.
Okay. AirPlay 2 will be held in Tampa, Florida, Sunday, April 17th, 2016. The event will be open to the public, and we will announce the location at a later date, barring security issues. You can also watch it live streamed on this YouTube channel. And if you wish to help AirPlay 2 out, you can donate to GoFundMe.com/AirPlay2. We're currently at 56% funded, but the funds will be put to good use, and we will be transparent with all the funds used in this event, primarily to bring in speakers from wherever locations they may be, securing the location, which we already do have, at the same time, any equipment that we might need to make an adequate live stream. If you have any questions, you can email us at gamejournalismnetwork@gmail.com, or you can ask by leaving a comment below, or you can ask us on Twitter using the hashtag AskGJN. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up to this stream, including our speakers, Derek, Mark, and Ash. John, thank you for joining me for this. I'm Aaron Pabone, Game Journalism Network. Have a good evening.